Welcome into the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. You figured that out because you're smart, and it's also the name of the show. Welcome in, everybody. Hello.
Hi, hello. It's time for the Russ Joy Show. I am Russ Joy.
You knew that already because it's the name of the show. Welcome in. It is a wonderful Wednesday, a wacky Wednesday. Man, have I had a day. It's been a good day. It has been a really, really good day. Good work day. Got a little workout in early this morning.
Got a little workout in, get the flex and going, gotta, get in good shape here for the summer. You know what I mean?
So it's been a good day. A lot of meetings, though. And I had a meeting that went a lot longer than expected, but that's okay. That's what it's all about. When you're a professional, you're willing to make time for the people that matter the most. And I did. I made time for them. Now, I have a lot to get into today. I'm going to have the running comments down here in the corner. So as comments start coming in, and I've seen that a bunch are already in here, but I didn't have the stream live when they started coming in. But as the comments come in, they'll show up on the screen down here by the little Snow the Goalie Johnski, by the number one dad with a thumbs up and next to Bucky. So by all means, you can drop your comments on YouTube, Facebook, and X. Remember, if you're on X, you have to click the video first, go into Periscope mode, and then type out your comment. I don't know why I did this. If you're on X right now, chances are you're not on a desktop. You're probably on the phone, so put that little message in. You can let me know what you're thinking. But I have to point out, and this is not a complaint. It might come off as a complaint. I'm pretty sure that the last episode, I said, hey, if you can, drop your favorite cheesesteak place in the comments, like the main comments, not the live chat. And so I had a lot of people at the end of the show dropping it in the live chat, but not in the main comments. So I'm going to try something. We've never done this before. We are 107 episodes into the Russ Joy Show, and we're going to try something new. In the regular comments, not the live chat, in the regular comments, to make up for last episode, drop your favorite cheesesteak place in the regular comments. Now, you can also put it up in the live chat, but just for the heck of seeing how YouTube likes the comments on the regular comment section, you could drop down there what your favorite cheesesteak place is, and I'll bring it up here. But I did see that we had a couple of cheesesteak things leading the way. Chris Freed over on YouTube says Curly's in Levittown and High Steaks in Ambler are outstanding places for cheesesteaks. I have been to neither. Video guy Amadeo says you don't want to try Skinny Joey's for their unseasoned steaks, Chris? Wow, that's Italian on Italian crime. Amadeo, you might be hearing from somebody at some point, and it ain't me. The seated rolls at Skinny Joey's look pretty damn good. Speaking of seated rolls, I think I've told you guys about Gazzo's up in Pottstown. Phenomenal. And I saw the chimichurri butter that they got going on as an option, and I haven't gotten up there yet for it, but I will. Oh, don't you worry, I will. As I keep trying to lose weight and to get a little bit of muscle, I'll get my protein in through that cheesesteak and a whole lot of carbs that my wife says I probably don't need, but that's okay. Chris Freed says, speaking of cheesesteaks, will Snow the Goalie have Joey Merlino on as a guest to discuss his alleged friendship with Eric Lindros in the 90s? A Skinny Joey episode would be the most listened to ever. That's just a bunch of paisans and Bundys sitting down having a good old chat. I don't know. Let's see. Chris says, Russ's background as a teacher would make the interview epic. Joey will either be talking about hits or Russ will be a hit. I don't know what that... Yeah, we'll see. Chris also says, as we wait, anyone else think that McDonald's should run commercials for their ice cream offerings during the NBA Finals with Joel Embiid? Soft and always broken down, a perfect union. Why is Joel Embiid catching a stray on a wacky Wednesday, Chris? Why are we going after Joel Embiid on a beautiful Wednesday? What are we doing here? Come on. The NBA Finals start tomorrow. The Stanley Cup Final starts tonight. I told you guys the other day, I think like a sweep is totally on the table. 5 games, likely, maybe 6, but Florida's winning it. I've yet to have anybody make a clear and concise argument on behalf of Connor McDavid's squad. If there's anybody out there today who wants to try to make the case, make me believe that Edmonton has a chance, you could certainly do that. Now, I will be watching. I will be locked and loaded watching that game tonight. I don't see it for Edmonton. I don't. Michael says, I like to pretend we drafted Cates at number 2 in 2017 and Patrick in the 5th round. you know what? If you look at it on aggregate, you still ended up with one of those guys being a contributor. Chris says, you wore the frog shirt to your meeting. The beauty of the meetings that I do, the camera cuts around here, so I'm okay. Although there was one person who saw it. Sometimes I throw a sweater on over top. It depends on what the call is. And I did have somebody say, is that a frog and toad shirt? And I said, you're darn right it is. And then we reminisced about our childhoods and reading Frog and Toad. So Zach O says, oh, yes! Michael dropping over in the live chat, Jim's is his favorite cheesesteak place. Let's see. Zach O says, not sure if you can leave a regular comment. I think you can while you're watching the stream live. Joey's in Thorndale has great steaks. All right, we're going to have to talk about some of these cheesesteak places. Maybe we'll have to do a live show. Just a bunch of people sitting around having a cheesesteak together, talking some Philly sports. Zach O says, speaking of McDonald's, the snack wraps are coming back. That is true. I'm not going to do a long segment on the snack wraps returning like I did on all the things that Wawa is throwing out. Because if you remember, it was last week is when I did the Sheetz versus Wawa thing, because Sheetz is invading. I didn't actually look to see. I'm pretty sure that the Limerick Township meeting was supposed to be last night. To find out like what's going on with Sheetz, if there was anything pushed through or not. I'm going to have to take a goosey gander later on today. But I'm pretty sure that meeting was supposed to be last night to give the final approval on Limerick Township getting a Sheetz. And now if it doesn't happen, I'm going to cry. And if it does happen, I'm going to cry. So either way, there are going to be a lot of tears on this show. And Zach says, you might as well just add food reviews to your show schedule. I might. If Sheetz opens up in Limerick, like, I'll tell you what, if Sheetz opens in Limerick or they open one in Schuylkill Township down in Phoenixville, whichever one opens first, I will do a live show on the day that location opens up. I don't even need Sheetz to sponsor it. I don't even need Sheetz to give me permission. I'll use like a mobile hotspot. I will do a show from the Sheetz whenever it opens. If it's in Limerick, if it's in Schuylkill Township, I don't care. I will do a live show from either. And if all goes well, maybe Sheetz will somehow look at my like not very impressive Twitter following of like 7,300 people or something on Twitter. And then maybe they'll look at like this channel and Snow the Goalie and some other stuff and be like, we'll have it. Let me work the fryers just for a little bit. I have great experience working at JFK in Pottsville at the city pool. I was a beast on the fryer and the flat top grill. You don't have to worry about me. I'll get my food safety classes and everything. Give me like a little Sheetz hat and apron. I'm locked in. Do a whole episode. It'd be awesome. Zach O says, parking lot live show. You're damn right. I'd be in. Chris Freed says he's in for a cheesesteak show. We could. I mean, listen, feel free to reach out to your local cheesesteak joint. Send them this YouTube channel and say, this guy is more than willing to come out and review your cheesesteak and interview the owner. I'll interview the owner. I'll interview whoever. We'll do a cheesesteak. We talk about it. Maybe I'll make like a little sub-channel on the Russ Joy Show channel. I've actually thought about it. Some local food reviews. It could be a lot of fun. The cheesesteak series. Oh, it could be great. You guys get me in touch with some local businesses. We'll make it work. It'll be great. They'll be so impressed by my incredible equipment that I have to film the show. It'll be awesome. Awesome stuff. All right, anyway. We have a lot to get into today. And now when I say that there's a lot to get into, am I being like mostly serious? Yeah, like there's a lot. If you looked at the thumbnail of the episode, you'll notice that there are a lot of topics today. And some of them are related to Philly teams, and some of them aren't quite as Philly related, but there are like little bits of Philly. I'd say that everything we're going to talk about today is at least tangentially affiliated with the Philly teams, which in theory, if you're a Philly sports fan, should make sense to you. Now, some of these things may trigger you. Some of these things may upset you. And no, it's not like an actual triggering thing. Like we're going to talk about a guy who is or was the trainer for Joel Embiid and Markelle Fultz. We're going to talk about some hockey targets potentially in the draft and in the trade market. We have a lot of stuff, okay? A lot to get to. And by the way, video guy Amadeo texted me earlier that he's kind of gone to war with GameStop. I guess the Switch 2 drops tonight. I got an email from Best Buy that's like, if you want to wait in line outside of the Collegeville store, you might be able to get a Switch 2. And I was like, I don't think I really need a Switch 2 right now. I just got done telling my wife how, like, we probably, it wouldn't be a bad thing with the summer coming up, save a little bit of money. The kids are out of school, the tuition for our daughter's school is coming off the books, and daycare goes down a little bit in the summer. And I was like, we'll save a little bit of money. It'd be great. So if I then go out and I wait in line at like 11 o'clock tonight to try to be one of the first people in to get a Switch 2 at Best Buy, I don't know how that would go. I don't really know. So let's get into the show. Let's get into everything that's actually happening, because there are a lot of things going on in and around Philadelphia sports. So I want to kind of back up a wee bit. Not a lot, but a wee bit, because there have been some very interesting things going on in the national news. I want to go there first, and then we're going to go to Philly. We'll start national, then we'll go Philly. So as many people saw, we're about to start the NBA Finals Thursday, and the news broke yesterday. I'm going to take this down. All right, there we go. So now when we do the screen share, it's going to look right. So we all saw this news by now, but Shams reported on Tuesday that the Knicks were axing Tom Thibodeau. So Tibbs is out. Now, I have long compared Tibbs to John Tortorella. They expect a lot out of their players. They maybe overwork and overplay some of their best players. And ultimately, their shtick kind of runs out in 5 years or less. Depends on the stop. And Thibodeau took them to an Eastern Conference final, and the Knicks got punked by an Indiana Pacers team that I just quite frankly don't believe has any shot in hell of winning the NBA Finals. And I think the Knicks probably should have gotten their way to the NBA Finals, where they probably also would have gotten steamrolled by the Thunder. But Tibbs is out, which then led to the question, and listen, if you're a Game of Thrones fan, you'll remember Azor Ahai. You'll remember the philosophy of the prince who was promised. And then they did the thing where they said, well, there's no gender in High Valyrian, so it was the prince or princess who was promised. I just want to point out, I've not gone back and found the clip, but it is long ago. But way back when, it might have even been back to the Adam Lefkoe, Kyle Scott crossing broadcast days. I threw out the idea that if Jay Wright were ever going to coach in the NBA, it wouldn't be the Sixers, it would be for the Knicks. And my long-held belief was, if you go back to Jay Wright's days of being a coach for Villanova, he'd always talk about the Big East tournament. He'd always talk about what it was like to coach at the Mecca up at Madison Square Garden. And there's always been part of me that's just thought, Jay Wright, pinstripe suit, loves MSG, maybe also likes MSG in his Chinese food and in his takeout. I don't know. I'm not judging. I have a bag of MSG upstairs. It's great. Nice little umami bomb. But he likes to coach at Madison Square Garden. He now has the Nova Knicks available to him. And I said years ago, I think that if he's ever going to go to the NBA, it's going to be to go coach the Knicks. Well, surprise, surprise, there are different sports books, some are offshore, that have odds on who will be the next coach. And some have Jay Wright in somewhere around plus 1,400 to become the head coach of the Knicks. He's on a list of I don't know, let's say 10 different people. But who's one of the people that we kind of trust to have their finger on the pulse of the NBA? We trust Brian Windhorst. Now, in fairness, Knicks fans don't trust Brian Windhorst. And in fairness, karma was a bitch to the Knicks fans because they pelted. Remember, they went after Brian Windhorst in the streets and somebody threw something at him, which you just can't do. Don't attack Windy. He seems like a lovely man. Why would you attack Windy? Anyway, here's Brian Windhorst. Now, among the names that have come up, one of them is Jay Wright. So we're going to kind of break this down. And again, I know some of you might be out there going, why are we talking about the Knicks? I said Philly adjacent, Philly related today. Jay Wright, former coach of the Villanova Wildcats, a very successful coach, and a program that, by the way, has not found anywhere near the same footing without him. All right, let's go over to Windy really quick. Is there any chance that Jay Wright is going to end up being the coach of the Knicks?
One of the more interesting jobs you're ever going to see because it is a desirable job. They have a very good roster. It is in New York City. And most importantly, it's in the Eastern Conference.
And the East stinks.
The Eastern Conference right now, the landscape is a lot more friendly than the Western Conference. And
break that one down really quick. I said to you guys last year, even as the Sixers were flailing, even as the Sixers were flailing in quicksand, I kept saying to you guys, The East sucks. In fairness, it sucks in the NBA and the NHL, right? Like, especially the bottom half of the conference or the bottom third of each conference. Very bad. So if you're trying to take a team that already has talent, one that already got, in this case, to the Eastern Conference Finals, why wouldn't you consider it? And again, will Jay Wright come out of retirement for it?
So, yes, it's a very desirable job. But then again, this is a flawed roster. The reason that they are no longer playing is because the flaws in the roster were exploited by the Indiana Pacers. And while that roster can be changed, it won't be easy because they've spent...
Well, they have Cat. Cat is a problem. Cat doesn't play defense. And there's the rumor out there that Mikal Bridges was very, very upset with Tom Thibodeau throughout the season, and that James Dolan brought in all of the Nova Knicks and presumably brought in Cat as well to voice their concerns about the head coach. And there's that thought out there that if Mikal Bridges is now disillusioned and is no longer interested in being a Knick, then maybe getting rid of Thibodeau was going to save that. There are already rumors out there that Bridges is going to be dangled in talks for Kevin Durant. We'll keep going.
So many of their assets to put this starting five together. They also just ran a gentleman out of there who was their most successful coach in 2 decades, who had back-to-back 50-win seasons and made the conference finals.
A lot of Knicks fans, by the way, a lot of celebrities, but a lot of Knicks fans with a sizable following are upset about the firing because they say the Knicks haven't been relevant. This guy made them relevant, and he instilled a culture. Does that sound familiar if you're a Flyers fan? He installed a culture and instilled certain values in the players, and now you're getting rid of that. Okay.
The standard that you're going to have to overachieve on is going to be very difficult, and you're going to do it in the hottest media environment that we have in the country. So it is a very complex job. I do think that there are a number of people that they can look at. There are 3 different levels where I sit and see right now. One would be the 3 guys who were successful coaches in the league last year that were surprisingly fired. Mike Brown, coming off Coach of the Year not too long ago, had the Kings had their best seasons in 20 years. He was fired. He's definitely a strong candidate.
That won't
You've
get it
got
done.
Michael Malone, who kind of is a little bit like Tom Thibodeau in his unwillingness to go too deep into.
Malone is an interesting name, if for no other reason than we know that he's been able to take teams that have the requisite talent to win a championship and has won one. He won it with Denver. But that was also a very nasty kind of falling out with Denver. So it's kind of hard to envision a scenario where that's like a total no-brainer for them, but it might end up being a brainer. All right, let's keep going.
To the bench and his rigidity, but is a championship-level coach who instantaneously demands the respect of veterans. So that's what you've got there in New York, so he'd definitely be considered. And you have Taylor Jenkins, who might have ended up coming close to a 50-win team with the Grizzlies and was fired with 2 weeks left to go in the season, who was, again, experienced head coach.
Another good option.
Look at sort of the off-the-board guys, and that's where you have to look at Jeff Van Gundy.
Van Gundy's name has been coming up a lot.
Has gotten rave reviews for his work with the LA Clippers and the Boston Celtics over the last couple of years. He knows what it takes to be a head coach in New York. Would be an excellent option. I don't know if he wants the job though, Molly, because he's a guy who is very close to Tom Thibodeau. And, I saw the way he was treated, and I'm not sure he would want it.
Does that sound a little bit like the Mike Sullivan of it all? After Torts got let go, Sullivan was a good close friend of Torts. Does that maybe get in the way?
Maybe some people would never been NBA head coaches before. That's where you think about a Jay Wright or maybe a Royal Ivey as a top assistant.
Royal Ivey, stop. So Jay Wright is only mentioned in very little passing at the end of a Windhorst hit on First Take. And so it makes you wonder if you've been one of the people who, like me, have thought Jay Wright is a legitimate threat to get that job, is a legitimate guy to get that job, or a contender to get it. It's interesting that one of the most plugged-in people on the national circuit doesn't seem to believe that Jay Wright is a legitimate threat right now. It doesn't mean that he won't be a threat, but it's interesting nonetheless that name is not getting more traction right now. Now, again, no guarantee it's going to happen. There's no guarantee that that's going to be the way that the Knicks go. But I do think that there is a non-zero chance that Jay Wright ends up finding his way into contention, into conversation for that job. Now, that was very barely related to Philly. let me take you to another thing that is Philly related before we actually get into the Philly of it all. It is one of the most brutal, epic takedowns I have seen on social media in a very, very long time. I mean, we are talking a wild amount of time since I've seen the kind of destruction of a human being that we witnessed on X the other day, if you were keeping up with it. And I mentioned, so Drew Hanlen, guy who was the trainer of Joel Embiid, Markelle Fultz's trainer, Jason Tatum's trainer. So Brandon Jennings, who you may remember as being a Milwaukee Buck, is on a bunch of other teams as well. Lefty, good guard, not great. Brandon Jennings tried to go after Drew Hanlen, this trainer, a few days ago. And it was an article about how Hanlen puts his guys in a text chain where he's essentially challenging them, right? He's challenging his guys going into a big matchup, and he puts them on this text chain. So Brandon Jennings then tries to follow up. I'm looking at it. It was a few days later. He quote tweeted himself. Never a great move. Not a great move, but he quote tweets himself a few days later and says, "Why are you so quiet now, you groupie-ass trainer?" Then he tags Drew Hanlen. "Where is the group text chain now? You the biggest basketball groupie trainer ever." Okay. So then you say to yourself, all right, well, that seems kind of intense. It seems kind of harsh. Oh, Drew Hanlen, he answered back, and he answered back pretty forcefully. He says, "I'm getting two of my clients, Halliburton and Holmgren, ready for the finals, so don't have time to waste on your dumbass takes." Side note, maybe if your trainer would have talked shit to you, you wouldn't have shot 37% from the field and 23% from three in the playoffs while never winning shit. Ladies and gentlemen, if I could drop this mic, I would do it. So Brandon Jennings tries to go after this trainer, and the trainer, this isn't even like takes a shot. This is like that scene in The Godfather. This could even be like the end of Scarface. I don't know the man, right? This is a bloodbath. Getting Halliburton and Holmgren ready. One guy on each team represented in the finals. I don't have time to waste on you. By the way, if your trainer had talked shit to you, you would have shot better than 37% from the field and greater than 23% from three in the playoffs while not winning shit. Oh, and it got worse because then, as a follow-up, he quote tweeted StatMuse showing that Brandon Jennings in the playoffs for his career averaged 8.9 points per game, 2.6 assists per game, shot 37% from the field, 24% from three-point range, and 80% from the free throw line, the third lowest playoff three-point percentage in NBA history with a minimum of 75 attempted three-point field goals. That is a murder. The fact that Hanlen was able to get StatMuse involved, the fact that he was able to get StatMuse to come and dunk on Brandon Jennings, it's incredible. It was next level stuff. Now, I mentioned it was Philly adjacent because Drew Hanlen, Embiid's trainer, was Markelle Fultz's trainer. I don't know if he still is. Anyway, that's something for you. All right. Now, let's get into the Philly of it all. We had some fun. We ventured away. And now we're going to bring it back to the Philly of it all because there are lots of things going on. Mostly, if you want to be honest about it, Phillies had a very nice effort yesterday. We're not going there today. No offense to the Phillies. We love the Phillies. We love Christopher Sanchez. We don't love the control yesterday. But I think he's up to he now has the fourth most starts over the last two seasons by a left-handed pitcher to allow 3 runs or fewer. Hell of a stat. Well done, Christopher Sanchez. Good win. Snapped the losing streak. Trey Turner, 2 home runs. Bryce Harper comes back for the first time since, May 27th, hits a home run. Good on the Phillies. Why am I not diving into the Phillies? Because I watched the game, and it made me feel very little. They need to win me back.
That's a 162-game season. You're really out after a 4-game losing streak?
No.
Well, then how are you not back in after A nice little outburst by the lineup. A Trey Turner hitting 2 home runs, and Bryce Harper hitting 1.
Because it got me feeling a little bit better. Did it make me feel frisky as a Philly fan? Nah. It made me go, there are the bats. And then I have the old voice in my head. I have that old voice in my head that says,
Hey, don't forget, Sonny. I bet you the Phillies, they score all those runs. You know, that means they're not going to score much over the next 2 games. You know that, right?
There's that old Philly fan in me that knows there's a chance that all those runs are going to mean we're going to see very subpar production at the plate over the next few games. I'd like to be wrong, though. It'd be great to be wrong. I'm just not wrong very often. But when I am, I'll tell you that I am. Okay. So, we do have one other real quick note before we dive into everything. But as the NBA Finals get ready to start, you will see a Philadelphia 76er in the final. You actually will. You will see a Philadelphia 76er represented at the NBA Finals this year. Not in the finals, but in case you missed it, Jared McCain, who this team very clearly seems like they're going to build around in some meaningful way, is going to be a player correspondent at the NBA Finals. And the NBA is already promoting him. I didn't even see this. I just saw it. This came out a little bit ago. What's Jared McCain up to?
For those who don't know this, I love Kyle. This guy's good. Kyle? Oh, he's golfing. Oh, what's going on, Kyle?
Hey, young man.
What's going on?
What's up, bro?
I literally just want to say good morning to you, man. Hope you're having a great day, and I love you.
What do
Wow,
you want,
that's
bro?
sweet.
I just want to say good morning.
Oh, it's Kyle
I love you,
Lowry.
man.
It's almost afternoon, and I love you too, but don't call my phone, bro.
I'm gonna call you back later.
You still gotta play.
Okay.
You still gotta play about 55 more games before you're not a rookie.
What do you mean? We'll talk later about our days.
No, we won't. I'm not gonna block you.
He's joking. He's joking.
Kyle
You have a
Lowry
great day,
blocking
man.
Jared McCain
Yeah, that's
would be
my guy.
something.
We love each other, man. That's.
In case you've missed this trend on TikTok, there's the idea of calling somebody. You call and you say good night. And in this case, he said good morning and says, I love you. And you wait to see what your friend does. And you wait to see how your friend responds. And some of the reactions are hilarious. Anyway, Jared McCain, very smart social media guy. Great presence on TikTok. He's going to be a player correspondent for the NBA Finals. So, I don't know what to make of it. I guess it's nice. Can't find a downside to it. Seems like a nice guy. So when you're watching the NBA Finals, you'll at least see Jared McCain somewhere around the telecast. I don't know what he's going to be doing as a player correspondent, but he's going to be doing something. And when you just think about, in the grand scheme of things, there is something a little bit nice, I guess, about seeing one of your younger players get some kind of visibility on the national stage. It would obviously be better if it were happening because the Sixers were in the playoffs, in the NBA Finals. Maybe next year will be the year. Probably not, but who knows? The East sucks. And if the Knicks blow it up, they might suck. And Milwaukee might not have Giannis, and they certainly won't have Dame. I can talk myself back into the Sixers being a top 4 team in the Eastern Conference again next year. Don't you worry. I'll get myself there again, and I might even convince a few of you to go with me. Now, 2 Philly-related things on the Flyers. 2 big stories. One is a potential trade target that nobody thought was going to be available. And then the second one is draft-related. I'm going to start with the draft-related because it was a much more breaking news kind of situation here. Now, there's a little bit of an interview that we're going to throw to from the NHL Combine. But there is a player that if you've been paying attention to me here or over on Snow the Goalie, you will know there is a player that I have wanted the Flyers to be interested in and a player that has a very concerning injury that I would like to imagine could make him slide into like the 12 to 16 range, where the Flyers could maybe trade up from number 22, perhaps include the Edmonton pick. That's either going to be 31 or 32. Maybe you include some second-round capital, as the Flyers have 3 first-round picks, 4 second-round picks. Maybe you're able to figure out a way to finagle your way up and get a young man who's 6'5" and plays center, named Roger McQueen. Well, I don't know if the slide is going to happen because it was announced yesterday. McQueen said at the Combine that his back injury was misdiagnosed and that he didn't have a bulging disc in his back after all, and now he's healthy. And so I'm going to throw this out really quickly to a friend of the show, Adam Kimmelman, who had a write-up for NHL.com and passed along this quote on X yesterday. He says, Roger McQueen was quoted as saying, 1 to 10, I'm at a 10, pain-free now, and no symptoms for the last while. So it's been awesome, and I probably haven't felt better in the last 3 years. Now, let's kind of take all this with a grain of salt. Roger McQueen is about to enter the NHL draft. He's trying to reach the ultimate pinnacle of when it comes to leagues in the world. He's trying to get himself drafted into the NHL. He knows that in theory he should be somewhere in that first round, in theory top 15. If he had been healthy, you're talking about a guy who maybe could have been in the top 3. Centers that are 6'5" don't just grow on trees. But the question has been around that back injury. Now, bulging disc sounds very bad. He claimed it was a misdiagnosis. Is he going to come out and say, oh yeah, the injury is actually as bad or worse than it was reported? Probably not. He's more likely than not going to try to make it sound like things are all hunky-dory. Now, I want to throw out to Roger McQueen, because I would assume if you're a Flyers fan, you probably haven't watched Roger McQueen play a lot, and you probably haven't heard Roger McQueen a lot. You maybe never even seen the guy without a helmet on. I want to go out to the Combine, though, because I think it's important that as we start getting ourselves ready for the NHL draft now, later this month, can you believe it, because we're in June, I think it's important to kind of have an idea of what Roger McQueen is. Let's hear from the young man. Seemed to have good news yesterday about his health. Let's listen to young Roger McQueen.
With Roger McQueen here in Buffalo.
By the way, this was done by the Flames. They did a nice job here getting the one-on-one.
On the concourse at KeyBank Center during the NHL Combine. Roger, 2 days into it. How are you feeling? How are you enjoying the experience of being here in Buffalo?
Yeah, obviously it's awesome. I personally love seeing new faces and faces I've seen very familiar with in the U18 tournaments. So it's been awesome to meet with lots of teams here, and it's been nothing but the best.
Look how tall he is. His head's about to hit the ceiling. I knew he was 6'5", but by God.
Teammate here too, don't you, from Brandon Carter Klippenstein? So is it nice to have a familiar face as well?
Yeah, for sure. Having a teammate here, Carter, he's a great guy, and I couldn't say enough good things about him. And being able to just be with him in a room, especially I'm rooming with him too, so it's nice to be able to talk about it and kind of get his sense of how he's feeling. And I think we're both really enjoying it, and it's been awesome.
Your head coach in Brandon, Marty Murray, is a former Flame, a longtime pro. What have you learned from him over your time with the Wheat Kings about the professional lifestyle and about kind of preparing yourself mentally and physically for the next level?
Yeah, Marty's top notch at that, and he really helps me out, especially like that. He puts me in kind of his shoes, and back when he was a kid, he kind of talked.
We don't really care about the Flames angle to this, but UConn here with a good point. He's a ginger, was born a Flyer.
Coach, and being able to see him all the time at the rink, and being able to get his info on how to make it and how to be almost like him. He's been awesome. So.
It's no secret you missed a good chunk of the year this year.
Here's the injury stuff.
Two-part question. First of all, how are you feeling now? You look good.
Yeah.
Second of all, what did you learn maybe over the course of this season just about dealing with adversity and overcoming obstacles?
Good luck with the answer there, young man. This is one of those things that's going to run to the entire league and every fan base. Every fan base that's looking for a center that's 6'5". No pressure on this question.
Yeah, so the back's behind me. I feel great. I feel 10 out of 10. So I'm thrilled to have that in my past. And obviously, yeah, it was a tough.
He looked down the barrel of that lens, of that camera, smiled at every fan base in the National Hockey League and every front office, and said, I'm 10 out of 10. I'm fine. Okay.
Tough year to have all that happen and in that kind of sense, but I learned a lot. There's a lot of lessons to be learned, and just staying positive with yourself. There wasn't a whole lot you can really do with that. It was just rest. So I learned a lot in the time of lessons, and had a lot of free time to work on the other side of my game, the mental side, which is arguably more important than the other side. So it was really
good shout there by the young man. Very good PR training.
beneficial in my opinion.
When you talk about the less important side, so to speak, the on-ice play, for those who haven't seen you play, what do you take pride in as a player? What do you consider your strong points?
Yeah,
nice
I
little
think
rip there.
the strongest points of my game is obviously my skills or size is very complementary with
6'5".
with how I play. I think with my puck handling ability and ability to score, I think is a big thing for me. And yeah, I think just being able to play that physical game is also a good thing. Just being able to have a and B game if the puck's not going your way. So I like to be able to play physical and play with skill and try and find the happy medium in that.
Play physical, play with skill. He's 6'5". He plays center. I mean, that's pretty much your dream for the Flyers, right?
That B game, that's something that comes with size, obviously, naturally.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's something that really helps with size. Obviously, you can be not that big and always play that too, and that's awesome. But I think
that's the only real concern. Now, I have seen some people that have floated out there that despite the physical stature of the guy, that he doesn't play big. We'll get there a little bit closer to the draft.
I think size helps with that, and just being able to be heavy in the corners and heavy down low and being a heavy forward to play against.
Away from the rink, what keeps Roger McQueen busy?
Yeah, there's a lot that keeps me busy. I'm around all the time. I'm hanging out with buddies all the time, and my favorite thing to do is play cards. So if you ever want to play cards, just let me know. But yeah, we have a good poker league in Saskatoon that we play there, and I think just any kind of card game. We have a wake boat, so I surf there. I have a sports court in my backyard, so I'm playing basketball, pickleball, all the sports. But yeah, I'm mostly hanging out with friends and doing that kind of thing.
Is euchre?
Maybe he can help the Sixers.
That's a Saskatchewan thing, isn't it?
We play euchre in Brandon all the time. That's our number one game on the bus. So I've played over 1,000 hours of euchre lately, and it's awesome. I can play euchre or any card game for hours on end. So
as a card player, I don't know how to feel about that. All right, so let's kind of recap for a second. Let's kind of zoom out for a second. Roger McQueen fits every possible need, at least on paper. Roger McQueen is the perfect player for what the Philadelphia Flyers need. He's young. He's 6'5". He plays center. He talks about playing with skill and with size. He's exactly what this team needs. The problem is the back. He claims that it was a misdiagnosis, that it wasn't a bulging disc, and I saw somebody said over in the comments that he said that it was a fracture that's healed. Now notice, he said in that interview that it was just something that he had to rest. You can't really do anything with it. That does, in fact, sound like a fracture. So if he had a fracture in his back, not ideal. All right, I'm not going to tell you that a fracture in your spine is a good thing. But relative to some of the other things that it could have been with the back, that's workable. That is workable. But is this a player that the Flyers should take at number 6? Well, it's a very clearly yes and no. If he's fully healthy, and if the Flyers are convinced that he can play a big physical style at 6'5", then the answer is pretty definitively, yeah, he should be the guy at 6. But if you're Danny Briere, and you're Keith Jones, and you are looking to accelerate or to take the next step in what this rebuild is, you have to get this pick right. This pick at number 6 has to be a contributor and can't be like a guy who ultimately reaches like third line potential. No. This guy has to be a bona fide stud, not a franchise cornerstone, maybe not a generational talent, but a legitimate contributor in a meaningful way. Top 6 guy, preferably top line forward. Needs to be that guy because they're going to work on tweaking this roster. Maybe not a full overhaul this offseason, but between this offseason and 2026, it's going to be a very different looking team. This pick has to hit. There is no excuse. Now, if you're Danny Briere and you're Keith Jones, are you going to tie yourself to a guy that has had, whether it's a fracture, a bulging disc, something else, are you going to put the entirety of this draft on that kid's back? I'm not sure that you will. If he starts falling, that to me is where I have always been intrigued in the player. Think about it like this. Everyone's able to point out anomalies, and it happens in the league every single year. There will always be a player that falls into the 20s. There will occasionally be the player that falls into the second or third round that you look back and, hell, even think of a guy like Giroux fell late in the first round. You had a guy like Kaprizov that ended up being taken in a later round. And people like to point out to them. They say that, oh, these are guys. This is why you make those picks. This is why you don't part with draft capital. And I always say, a lot of it, though, comes down to being an anomaly. The reason that it's easy to point to a Giroux or to Kaprizov is that they're not the regular. They're not the norm. This isn't where you find that quality of player all the time. So when you're the Flyers and you have pick 6, pick 22, and either pick 31 or 32, I don't expect them to make all 3 of those picks. But if a Roger McQueen starts to fall, Okay? Assuming the Flyers don't trade up, assuming that the Flyers don't fall so in love with like a Frondell, or they don't fall, or they super fall in love with like, I don't know why you would move up for Martone, but maybe they do. Or they somehow try to figure out a way to trade up to take Misa, which I don't think there's any chance they can get up to 2, which is where he'll be taken. If they don't move up, I don't think they're going to move back. If they don't move up, is there a scenario where McQueen falls into that 12 to 16, 12 to 18 range? That's where you make the move. That is 100% to me where I say, all right, you could probably get a good player at 22. You might even be able to find a hidden gem at 30 or 32, or 31 or 32. But if McQueen falls, let's just play this hypothetical out. Say Porter Martone ends up being the pick at 6. All of the best centers are off the board. You're not totally sure, but you believe in Martone. You believe in him as a winger. And then you say, all right, we need to come away from this draft with a center. What are you willing to part with to try to get that center? And if you believe that Roger McQueen has the ability to be preferably a 1C someday, at worst a 2C, which, by the way, you still have value, like there's a need for, right? What are you willing to part with? And that's where I say the best GMs, the best front offices in sports are willing to have all the cards on the table. Or they're willing to put their balls on the table. I don't know why you would. That just seems uncomfortable. But they're willing to do it. They're willing to make a move that seems at least slightly psychotic in the moment. But they do it and they find success because every great front office executive at some point in their career has to take a chance. And maybe they get burned, but maybe they don't. If McQueen has a clean bill of health, he will probably be gone in the top 10. But if there are teams that have enough front office executives that are feeling the warmth under their keisters on their seats, they're not going to make that pick. They're not going to take the kid that has a back injury or is coming off a back injury or who says that his back is healthy. They're not going to stake their existence as a GM in this league on that player. They won't. Because whether you want to believe it or not, and whether you want to accept it or not, front office executives sometimes make very selfish choices. They don't always make choices that are the best for the organization or best for the organization longer term. They are creatures of habit, and they also have a bit of ego, and they also want to preserve their jobs. So there are going to be front office executives that if McQueen were to fall to 10, were to fall to 12, you might see guys who are worried about their future as the GM of their respective teams who know that Roger McQueen maybe does have the highest ceiling of any guy on the board, has the most talent of anybody on the board. It's the most intriguing prospect on the board, but they're not going to take him because they don't want to lose their job. So if McQueen falls to 12, if he falls to 16, Danny Briere's got to get on the phone. And he's got to get the deal done. That's where I'm at. I know that like a lot of times people look at it, and everybody wants to believe that every prospect in the Flyers prospect pool is going to be great. I have no fucking idea what Jet Lashenko is. I have an idea of what Jet Lashenko is. I have an idea of what I think his upside is based on the little I've seen him play. I don't get the feeling that Jet Lashenko is going to be a 30, 35 goal-scoring center. I don't necessarily get the feeling that Jet Lashenko is going to be a 1C in this league. And I could be very wrong, and he's very young, and I'd love to be wrong. But right now, I would rather add to that prospect pool and be in a situation where, like, 2 years from now, you're having a really tough conversation about, all right, which of the young centers do we have to move? I'd rather have a bevy, a glut of actual center prospects in this organization than be left very thin at the position. They have long been thin at center. They have a potential here. I mean, in theory, they could end up with a center at number 6. And if McQueen continues to fall and he gets like 14, 15, 16, I'd be on the phone and I'd be trying to move up from 22 to go get that kid. That's where I'm at. Here's my best case scenario, right? Flyers get whoever they get at 6. Is it Martone? They get another really good winger. Awesome. Is it a center? Cool. That center's not going to be ready to play this year. Might not be ready to be on the team next year. So that's like a 2-3 year project, right? You have Noah Cates, who they re-signed, who we're going to get to here at the end of the show, who proved to be a very good 3C. In an ideal world, could be a great 4C for you, even at $4 million a year. Could be a great 4C for you. Jet Lashenko maybe ends up being a 3C. If he hits what I think his ceiling could be, maybe he ends up being a 2C. You still have to figure out the 1C and the 3C. Couturier, probably a 3C next year. Maybe they make him a 2C. If Lashenko makes the roster, you're probably going to see Couturier and Lashenko go back and forth. I don't know what that's going to look like. You're not going to put Lashenko on the 4th line. So I think Cates, for better or worse, might end up being, I don't know. We'll have to have that conversation down the road. But man, can you imagine if the Flyers are able to walk away from this draft with 2 legitimate forwards, maybe 2 centers, one of which is 6'5" and could potentially be the steal of the draft? You need luck and you need somebody who's willing to take risks. And I think that both Briere and Jones to this point have done a good enough job to ensure that they're not on the hot seat. They're not. This is a draft that you can take a shot. This is a draft that you can take a swing. What ends up happening? I don't know. But I'd be really, really interested. And what I will promise you is that sometime between now and the draft, I will go talk to some people from the organization because I would actually like to know what they think about Roger McQueen. I want to know if I'm just crazy. Maybe it's just me. But there is something to me that believes that's the kind of guy. You get him, he falls, and it's almost reminiscent of watching Matvei Michkov fall to 7. Very different reasons for that. But you watch a guy who should have been the number 1 or 2 overall pick in his draft fall to 7. McQueen should have, if he had been healthy, if the back injury never happens, he's probably a top 3 pick. If he falls into the early teens or the mid-teens, like that to me is it. That's like history kind of repeating itself in a really potentially beneficial way. I don't want to go into a draft overrating what Jet Lashenko is going to be. Because there's no part of me right now that goes, oh yeah, Jet Lashenko's definitely going to be a 1C someday. Maybe he will be. But I'd rather go into it expecting he's going to be like a 3C, maybe a 2C, and that it was maybe a mistake of a pick instead of taking Zeev. Probably going to be a really good defenseman. I'd rather go into it with low expectations around Lashenko and be able to fortify that position. And then over time develop a McQueen or Frondel or a Martone or whoever they end up getting. Or maybe they get Denoyer. We'll see. I did notice that David Daniel really hates the idea of Roger McQueen. Said Nolan Patrick all over again. Also says damaged goods. Says that he thinks that Couturier is going to be the 2C. Let's see. There was some other stuff up here. He was very. I also notes that Kucherov was a 2nd round pick. Correct. Again, an anomaly, but 2nd round pick. Okay. Let's see. There's so many things up here. He goes, Steve McQueen, maybe better. Says McQueen, guy's a cripple. 23 games. He and Demko can get a room, but he's injured. Says, no way. Take him at 26. Video guy Mateo says, why are you yelling? He can make pancakes from your balls. How did we get from this guy's injured all the time that he can make pancakes and rub your butt? What are we doing? David Daniel, are you okay? Are you okay? All right. By the way, I have not heard anything since the last show that would indicate to me that the Marco Rossi thing is happening. I know we talked about this last week, but I don't see it. And I see that over in the comments, the idea was getting thrown around again. Where's it at? I saw somebody saying about Rossi again. I just don't see that even being a legitimate option. Zacho says Denoyer, Frondel, and Higgins feel like the safest picks. They do at 6. I wouldn't say that they should take McQueen at 6 unless they know for a fact he is totally healthy and they are convinced that he is like a generational talent, which I don't think anybody thinks he is. I'd probably go with one of the safer guys at 6 because despite them being quote unquote safer, they're all still very good players. They're not like none of those 3 on the screen right now are bad players or are guys that are going to be like 3rd line ceiling. Like that's not it. So it's not even like you're saying, I'm going to take somebody that has a really an acceptable ceiling, but a higher floor, but maybe isn't going to reach that next level. I'd take one of those guys, but I would monitor this to see if McQueen falls. Let's see. Anthony DeGracio says Robertson, Rossi, and Martone. We're going to get to Robertson in a second. But the Rossi thing ain't happening. I don't think so. Let's see. Jay Grebby says over on YouTube, leaving this draft with Frondell or Hagens and McQueen would be a heist. I agree. It would be awesome. Sutliff says, I'd rather trade one of those other first rounders for NHL players that can help now, not more prospects that may or may not help in 3 to 5 years. It depends on what the player is, though. Like, if you're just getting somebody who's like a stopgap player, I don't care about it that much for this year. Like, again, I think that they're going to end up being good enough. They'll get a goalie. They'll end up being good enough to make the playoffs. But, like, getting an NHL player to what end? What is the ultimate goal in getting somebody who's just going to contribute but not give you a higher upside longer term? It's the beauty of being in the midst of a rebuild here. And don't forget, so much cap space next year will be available. You don't want to commit yourself to an NHL player that has multiple years left on a deal, especially if it's not going to be somebody who has significant upside. Let's see. Anthony says, Briere is in a spot to take risks because he's not getting fired anytime soon. Correct. Zacho says, seeing rumors on Twitter about Philly and Vegas talking about a trade for Nicolas Hague. I saw that. It's over. NHL Rumor Report put something out. I saw the tweet a little bit ago. We'll throw this on the screen real quick. That Elliot Friedman apparently said on the radio that the Flyers have been linked to him. So there's another defenseman who could maybe help you out. Listen, they're going to have to figure out the blue line because Risto is not going to start the season, right? They'll have to figure out some kind of a stopgap. I don't know what they're going to do. Jay Grebby asks, sorry if you covered this already, but what do you think happens with York? I don't know what happens with York, but I'd trade him. I would unload Cam York, especially, you know what? There you go. There's your trade up from 22 to go after McQueen. Would I trade Cam York and 22 and 31 or whatever to go move up in the first round and go get another young player? I would. I don't believe in Cam York at all. I just don't. If there's one guy that was up for a contract or whatever that I just wouldn't even care about negotiating with, it's Cam York. I just don't see it. Nothing against the guy. He is an NHL caliber player. I'm not saying he's not, but he ain't it for me. And again, when you're talking about a blue line that needs size, you're going to keep Drysdale. You're going to keep Emile Andre. Cam York to me is the odd man out. And there are teams that are certainly going to be interested in Cam York. He might end up being the guy that's able to get you a nice return. He's not a worthless player. I want to make it very clear that despite the fact that I don't believe in Cam York, the player, I don't believe in Cam York, the long-term piece of a Flyers team that's trying to compete for a Stanley Cup long-term. Even though I don't believe he's that guy, he's not a bad player. He's a good player. Should get you something. CMZ says, if Briere can land Hagens or Denoye and then get McQueen, oh boy. We will see. We will see. Anthony DeGracia says, calling it now, Schaefer does not go number one. If Schaefer doesn't go number one to the Islanders, it makes everything else in the draft very interesting. If that were to happen, if Schaefer falls, and Schaefer is widely viewed as the number one defensive prospect in this draft, if he falls, and the rumors about San Jose being willing to move out of number two are true, well, that changes the calculus on everything. Because then if you're the Flyers, you go, all right, we can go up and get a guy who might end up projecting to be a true number one defenseman. Do you try to move up from 6 to 2 with San Jose? If Schaefer were to fall for some reason past number 2, Chicago will take him at 3. If Schaefer somehow falls to 4, Utah, you could probably get the trade back. But I don't know. I don't see a scenario where Schaefer goes that far. Let's see. Purple Crayon says McQueen for 6. So Purple Crayon is in on Roger McQueen at number 6. I wouldn't go that far, but who knows? Ryan Reese says Jet is a 4C in the AHL. Terrible pick. I mean, geez, a 4C in the AHL. Listen, I'm not a huge fan of the pick, but I don't know if I'd go all the way there. David Daniel, by the way, says, love you, Russ. I appreciate that, David. Thank you. And also says that Snow the goalie is the very best. I appreciate that. It's also very nice of you. Okay. There are a lot of other things to get to, and I have to somehow get to them, and there are a lot of comments, and the comments are rolling in the bottom of the screen. The last guy that I wanted to get to is a potential trade target for your team, your town, your Philadelphia Flyers, and literally every other team in the National Hockey League, and that's Jason Robertson, he of Dallas Stars fame. If you remember, and of course you do, Mikko Rantanen ended up in Dallas, signed a lucrative extension, and there was a belief out there that, oh boy, at some point Dallas is going to run into cap issues. And so now there's this belief that maybe Jason Robertson could become available. And this started going around a few days ago. But this came from DallasNews.com. We're going to pull an excerpt of this from the Dallas Morning News about Jason Robertson and whether or not Dallas would trade him. So let's go over to the Dallas Morning News. Thank you to the Dallas Morning News. They do a great job. I actually don't know. I don't read them. But I'm sure they do a great job. Let's go over to what they had to say about Jason Robertson. Quote, Robertson will likely expect a significant raise closer to what other top-line forwards like Hintz, $8.45 million, and Rantanen, $12 million, make. If the Stars don't think they can or aren't willing to afford him at that price, they may be better off testing the trade market to recoup some of the 3 first-round picks they sent away ahead of the trade deadline this year. They could also use the cap space with just $5 million to sign 6 players this offseason. In addition to his contractual issues, Robertson's game isn't as layered as other forwards like Hintz or Wyatt Johnson, the guy that I wanted the Flyers to go after. He's known as a pure goal scorer on the power play and in 5-on-5, but doesn't have as much versatility outside of that. So if you're talking about a pure goal scorer, right, which he is, he has 2 seasons with over 40 goals. I believe this season he had 35 goals. He's played all 82 games in 3 consecutive seasons. He is certainly a guy that is notable. He's certainly a guy that the Flyers should at least have a conversation about. Plays left wing. We like that. We're fine with that. If you're the Flyers, you have to have a conversation. He's 25 years old. He'll be 26 when the season starts. He sort of fits your timeline. I wouldn't say that it's a bad thing. He's not 22. Wyatt Johnson, I think, is 22 or just turned 23. Plays center. And that's why I wanted the Flyers to go after him. But Jason Robertson, legitimate 40-goal scorer in this league, makes me sit back and go, okay, if you're the Flyers, does that raise your ceiling significantly enough that not only are you a playoff team this year, but you maybe have an even higher ceiling, that maybe you can even reach another level in this first year and then entice a free agent in 2026 to come play with Travis Konechny, to come play with Jason Robertson, to come play with Matvei Michkov. Imagine if you're trying to woo a center next offseason and you have Jason Robertson, Matvei Michkov, and Travis Konechny, all of whom are very good players in very different ways, skilled, tenacious, pure goal scorers. If you're a center and you're looking at up-and-coming teams and you're looking at great places to play, and teams are going to have a lot of cap space in 2026, you have those 3 guys on the wing, it certainly makes the Flyers an interesting place to go in 2026. Now, again, he's played every game the last 3 seasons. The 4 seasons ago, he played 74 games. 41 goals, 46 goals, 29 goals 2 seasons ago, 35 goals this past season. He's put up point totals in the last 4 seasons of 79, 109, 80, and 80. If you're the Flyers, you have to at least have a conversation, right? You at least have to pick up the phone and have that chat. Now, I saw this. David Daniel says, trade York for him. I don't know what York is going to get. That's one issue. But also keep in mind, like the idea was kind of thrown out there a little bit ago in that thing from the Dallas Morning News. They have $5 million and they need to sign 6 players. I don't see a scenario where Robertson's back with them. I don't know what other guy they're going to part with that's going to free up enough cap space. And because he's going to be coming up on a new contract, that cap space is going to dwindle even further. So good luck. Jay Grubby says, I'd love to move York for him, but Dallas trying to clear cap space, and their left-handed defensemen are Heiskanen. Could have been Heiskanen. Nolan Patrick. Harley and Lindell. So they probably don't need another left-handed defense, but who the hell knows? All right. Let's see. Is there anything else that I wanted to get to? That was Robertson, so we got that. We talked about. Oh, there was one other. Oh, I saw it. There was another hire. The Flyers apparently are bringing in a new assistant coach. Dave Piñata of the Fourth Period put out that it sounds like, and I'm going to screw this guy's name up, and that's my fault. I should have looked this up, I guess. Yogi Svejkowvsky is going to be, potentially, the Flyers' new power play coach. Going to be an assistant coach. And that's notable because the power play would almost certainly be better with good old Yogi. I just love the name Yogi. Hey, boo-boo. You got yourself a power play basket?
Yeah.
So if Yogi is able to take his power play acumen up here and translate that to the ice with this group of players that hopefully will be better by the time the draft and free agency is over. Vancouver had the 15th ranked power play last year. The Flyers, you may have heard, had a dog shit at best power play under Rocky Thompson for multiple years. I'm not saying that it can't get any worse, but I will note that it would take a lot for Yogi to be any worse than Rocky Thompson. So good on Yogi if he ends up becoming a hire here and joins Rick Tocchet on the bench for the Philadelphia Flyers. Jay Grubby asks, general question, Russ. Have you ever thought of having guests on the Russ Joy Show? Yes, I have. And I've had people on before. Let me think. Broads has been on. John Marks has been on. Jose Nunez, covers the Union, has been on. Might get to more guests. We might start leaning in. I've had an idea for a while about a recurring segment or a recurring appearance schedule on the show. I think as we get into the summer, it's going to make more sense, especially as we get ready for the NHL draft and the NBA draft. I think you'll see some people popping up on this show every once in a while. I think you will. Last thing, Amadeo calls it out here. And I had him, I think front and center on the thumbnail. Whoops. Noah Cates. Noah Cates re-signs with the Philadelphia Flyers. Was a restricted free agent. 4-year deal. $16 million overall. $4 million cap hit. It's not a bad contract. We're at the point now where Danny Briere continues to make very nice deals. Now, some people initially were like, oh,
Does that seem like a lot? Doesn't $4 million seem like a lot of money for a 3C?
And I will once again point out, $4 million for a 3C isn't particularly bad. I don't like the idea of burning capital going forward just because the cap is going up. But the cap percentage of $4 million is not going to be very high in a year, and especially 2 years from now. And I would guess that within a year or two, $4 million is going to be on the lower end of what 3Cs are going to make in this league. You have to remember that over the course of time, these salaries are going to go up. And guys who don't appear to be worth the contracts they're going to be signing, they're going to set the new bar, and you're going to keep seeing that go up. That, to me, is a very good sign for the Flyers that they were able to once again go out. They bought what were essentially 3 years of Noah Cates' unrestricted free agency. They bought 3 years of that. And he's going to be able to sign another contract when I think he's 30. I want to say it's when he turns 30. He'll be able to sign another contract. So it's good for him. So it gives him some flexibility. He'll, in theory, still be at the peak of his powers, whatever that ends up, may end up being. But he's a really good 3C for this team. And as I outlined earlier, if we get to a point where you get multiple center prospects in this prospect pool, you could envision a scenario here where Noah Cates kind of flirts between the 3C and the 4C because you have legitimate studs at your 1C and 2C, and just by virtue of that, he moves down, and that's okay. That could be a great thing. Or maybe he stays at 3C. Couturier, for better or worse, is a good soldier, plays 4C for you. At a very high cap hit, but you're not trading that contract. Noah Cates played really, really well last year. He was part of a line that was kind of a revelation for this team. He plays his role. He doesn't try to do anything that he can't do. He doesn't try to sell himself as being something that he isn't. That is the perfect kind of guy to continue to bring back and to reward. So you now have Tyson Forster's back on a good deal. Helge Graan signed an extension, and now Noah Cates signed an extension. And I have to tell you, it's not a bad thing. Good business once again out of Danny Briere in this front office. So good on him. All right. Last thing. David Daniel says, Flyers need to sign someone with some talent. He has talent for his role. But yes, they need to get people that are going to be high upside at some point. Zacho says, anyone upset at Kate's signing doesn't know puck. Ooh, shots fired. Okay. I think that is probably it for today. Zacho also says, you have to do some viewer discussions in the summer, take some calls. I actually do have a way to sort of take calls on the show. I once had a weird workaround with a phone number, and then I decided it wasn't worth it. Now, I am not saying that at some point, for fun, I'm going to roll out like memberships over on YouTube, but I can tell you that the membership option is really to support the show, to make sure that we can continue to put it in the podcast feed, that, I don't know, we could still have this thing hosted. We pay Video Guy Amadeo, all that kind of stuff. But there could be a potential that at some point I put out the idea of like the YouTube memberships where you'll get commercial-free shows, where you would get some additional privileges. And one of those additional privileges could be that you get to come behind the scenes on the show where I initially streamed the show from, and then I could bring people on to the show, audio or including video. And maybe we do that occasionally. Maybe we do an extra show a week that's kind of like a round table. I don't know. Well, I'm trying to come up with some interesting ideas here. You know, it's a grassroots effort, this show. But I do, once again, appreciate each and every one of you who joined me on the show on YouTube, Facebook, and X. David Daniel had a lot of all caps, but says, great show, Russ, in all caps. And I love that. And it's great. Chris Reed says, so we get to heckle Russ for a full show? You might. I also saw, I don't know where he was at. Ford snuck in here, didn't like all the hockey talk today, but did say Jay Wright's not going to the Knicks. I think I saw it. Did Fawcett show up here partway through the show as well? I think he did. I saw him in there somewhere. I can't find the comment now. But anyway, I want to thank everybody who joined me for the show on YouTube, Facebook, and X. Remember, the best thing you can do to help this show, like the video, share the video, and subscribe. Ring the little bell so you get notified whenever the show goes live. And if you listen in the podcast feed, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts, leave a 5-star rating. That's helpful. 5-star reviews really help. But as you can tell, the focus here mostly is over on the YouTube. Liking the video significantly helps this channel. So liking the video, sharing the video, adding a comment in the regular comment section, they all help. Seriously, it's unbelievable how much differently this show ranks and gets recommended to people when you like the video, and even if you drop a comment. I'm serious. I don't know why. I don't understand the YouTube algorithm, but I will tell you, it really does help. DD with a wave. Zacho says that it's a like spike, so I don't know. Maybe we just got a bunch of likes. That's great. So all those things help. By the way, if you come across this show on TikTok, on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, Shorts, all the short form content that Video Guy Amadeo does, do me a favor, try to like that stuff too. You can subscribe to or follow the social media accounts, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all that. All right, that's enough. That was like a big assignment at the very end. So, sorry, I kind of gave you homework here, and it's the end of the school year for most people. So, we're doing what we can. Anyway, this has been the Russ Joy Show. I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart, and it's also the name of the show. I'll see each and every one of you on a fabulous Friday here on the Russ Joy Show. Until then, have a great day. Have a wonderful Wednesday, an awesome Thursday, and I'll see each and every one of you on Friday here on the Russ Joy Show. Bye now.